Welcome to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast, powered by StatRoute.com. And now, here's your host, Ryan Skullroot.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullroot. I am your host. And we have a special little show, not as special as tomorrow, though. Today, we are recording episode number 249 of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. Hard to believe that we're already up to that number. Tomorrow night, I will be recording number 250. We thought about doing something special, but with where we are right now in the season, and just with some things that are going on just in life in general right now, I figured it'd probably be better if we just focus on maybe doing something big for number 300, which will probably be during preseason this next year. So depending on how everything goes, it may be during draft season. So we'll kind of see where we go with that. But 200 and again tomorrow will be number 250, so that's just kind of insane to even think about the fact that we have gotten this far, and so we'll do what we can to celebrate a little bit, but our main goal right now is to just make sure that we give you guys the fantasy input that you need in order to make sure that your lineups and your teams are ripping through the rest of your league like we hope they can. So with that being said, real quick off the top, we want to again remind you to please like and or subscribe to the podcast, whether you are on YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you are listening to our podcast. We would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Not only doing that, but leaving a rating and or review gives us the opportunity to know what exactly you want from us, what you like, what you don't like about the show. And I understand that for a while now it's been just me, I'll see what I can do about getting some guests on, some of the staff on the show as well. Make this a little bit more of a group effort. But for right now, I hope that you guys are enjoying at least some of the info that I've been able to give you so far. Also, make sure to please, if you could, share out our episodes. You can do that either from whichever podcast platform you're listening to. You can share our YouTube videos, or you could even share the episodes from our website, SkullKingFootball.com. You can do it from there as well. So, again, we would just appreciate if you would, do us a favor and do your friends a favor, especially if they're not in your leagues, of sharing out our episodes just to be able to spread as much fantasy football advice and love as we can throughout the rest of this season. So with that being said, I think we will go ahead and get into the headlines.
Today's headlines.
All right, now we've got some big things going on here in the NFL. Starting it off, the Tennessee Titans have officially made a change, and they are benching Marcus Mariota and starting Ryan Tannehill in Week 7. He has already been told, apparently, that he is getting the start for this next week. We will kind of see how that goes. See, while he had an okay game finishing off against the Denver defense, I want to say he passed for around 115 yards. And I believe he threw a desperation interception late in the game when it really didn't matter anyways. So definitely be interesting to see how this goes for Ryan Tannehill and for the Titans at large. See if this provides any consistency for the wide receivers and for the running backs as well. Ryan Tannehill, as far as I can remember, hasn't really ever had a solid running back like Derrick Henry to work with. He's had, I believe, Frank Gore, Kenyon Drake. Really not a whole lot. So, and so we'll kind of see what Tannehill can do with this with a full week of working with the ones. And so we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. Story number 2. Alvin Kamara is dealing with the high ankle issue is all that we've seen and all that they're calling it right now. It's a high ankle type issue that will limit him in practice this week per sources. However, Kamara still believes that he has a shot to play Sunday against the Bears. We will see how this plays out. As an owner of Kamara in at least 2 different leagues, I really hope that he plays. And so this is something to monitor going over these next couple days and how this will go. Latavius Murray is definitely a pickup if you can for this week if Kamara is unable to play. Let's see. The other thing, this is the big story, is everything that the Rams did today. I'm sure you're listening to this obviously the day after, but I'm recording this at night. The Rams traded 2 first-round picks, a first-round pick in 2020 and 2021, and a 4th-round pick in 2021 to the Jacksonville Jaguars for Jalen Ramsey. They traded an undisclosed pick, as far as I know so far, to the Browns for center Austin Corbett. They traded away Marcus Peters to the Ravens and put Aqib Talib on IR, but I believe he's one of their guys that's designated to return later in the season, which means he's going to be coming back right around week 15, 16, 17, somewhere there. So that being said, this is definitely a major change. Obviously, their defense has struggled stopping, especially in the back end. Peters was a guesser and usually guessed wrong lately. And that was what made him so successful with Kansas City, is he guessed right a lot his first couple seasons, but he also got burned a lot. So Aqib Talib just hasn't been, I guess, healthy enough to really be able to play up to his standards as well either. And so, obviously getting the Jalen Ramsey thing is going to help. That's going to cause some things to be a little bit different in terms of what the Rams do on defense and how some teams are going to be playing against them on defense. So we'll kind of get a little bit farther into that as we go. Marcus Peters, actually, after playing with the Rams in Seattle 2 weeks ago, now this next week, his first week, will be playing with Baltimore in Seattle this next weekend. So where he actually played at the University of Washington before he got basically kicked off the team for his senior year. So like I said, a lot of things going on with the Rams. They were very, very active today. Another trade rumor that's been going around is that Trent Williams will quite possibly be on the Browns roster quite soon. Trent Williams is I believe the left guard or left tackle for the Washington Redskins, who has been holding out. Looks like right now he may be coming to the Browns, which the Browns could use a little bit of help in getting some protection for Baker Mayfield, who, when he's been pressured, has not been all that great. So hopefully that will help them out as well. A couple other stories to round things out. Chris Thompson is dealing with a turf toe injury. Right now he's questionable to be playing this weekend, which does not bode well if he's your number 2 running back in a 14-team league like he is for me. So we'll see how that goes. There is optimism that Emmanuel Sanders will play on Thursday. I believe he was dealing with I want to say it was a hamstring issue. It may have been a quad issue, like with what Amari Cooper was dealing with in Dallas. And Patriots first-round pick N'Keal Harry is officially back at practice after being placed on injured reserve earlier this season. And I believe that is it. So now we are going to do a quick little break, and then we will hop right into the game previews. We'll be covering 6 games tonight. So we'll go over the first half of the games for this weekend. right after this. Have your fantasy teams been struggling this year? Or perhaps you've been doing pretty well but want to put yourself over the top? Then make sure to visit our friends over at Finish First Fantasy Advisors. They are the premier one-on-one consulting firm that specializes in providing you with expert support to help guide you to the championship. You will be matched with one of their expert advisors to provide you with the season-long insight for your redraft, dynasty, or DFS formats. Their advisors will contact you weekly to answer all of your questions and provide you the needed information to get to the next level. Set up a free 15-minute consultation by emailing them at info@finishfirstfantasy.com or by visiting them at www.finishfirstfantasy.com. That's www.finishfirstfantasy.com. All right, well, let's get into these game previews. To start off, our game previews this week for Week 7 are brought to you by ProLytx.com. If you're looking to go to the next level with your DFS lineups, you need to go to ProLytx.com. Their AI learning machine provides predictive analytics, DFS roster construction, decision optimization, and more. Our staff has been very happy with the success using ProLytx for our own DFS lineups. It has helped me with multiple lineups. While their main thing is DraftKings and FanDuel, just having their general cheat sheets that they send out every week has been a lifesaver, even for some of the Yahoo DFS contests that I have been a part of. We have loved their projections, and we recommend their services to anyone wanting to take that next step with their DFS lineups. So make sure to go to pro-lytx.com, that's PROLYTICS.com, and use the coupon code SkullKingFF, that's all lowercase, SkullKingFF, for 40% off your first month. Again, go to ProLytx.com, that's PRO-LYTICS.com, to advance your DFS lineups this week. All right. So why don't we go ahead and get into the game previews. We are going to start it off with the Thursday night football game, the Chiefs at the Broncos. The Chiefs have lost 2 in a row at home, and we'll be going to a Broncos defense that played pretty solid this last weekend. That being said, we'll start with the Chiefs. Mahomes is still a quarterback one, even though he has been struggling a little bit. He is still putting up quarterback one numbers. He is the quarterback number 5, I believe, overall in fantasy this year. Williams and McCoy, I have them right now as running back 3s because we simply don't know how exactly they're going to be used in this offense. I believe that Damian Williams had 2 touches or something ridiculous like that in the last game. Now, of course, one of them was like a 14-yard pass for a touchdown. That being said, the fact that we are not sure whether or not they're even going to be used in the offense is concerning for their fantasy value. And so for them, I have them no higher than a running back 3 for this week. As far as the wide receivers go, I have Tyreek Hill as a wide receiver 1. He will be a top 10 wide receiver this week, at least in my rankings for right now. Going on to the other 3, Hardman, Robinson, and Watkins, I have all of them as basically boomer bust wide receiver 3s. Watkins may be a low-end wide receiver 2, but he is also, I believe, dealing with a hamstring or something. And so the Chiefs, like I said on yesterday's show, are optimistic he will be able to play Thursday. As of right now, we still are not sure. Moving on, Travis Kelce is a tight end 1, even though he has had a down year. And I believe he is right around tight end number 8 or 9 in half-point PPR. Or, depending on your scoring system, if you have, bonuses for first downs and all that kind of stuff. Kelce has not been performing as everyone would expect. But I do think that better days are coming ahead for Travis Kelce. Moving on to the Broncos. Flacco, I believe overall in the season, is quarterback number 23. He will remain as a quarterback 2 this week, even against this Chiefs defense. I think that he could put up higher quarterback 2 numbers, but with the fact that I think that they are still going to try to lean on Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman to get things done. Lindsay I have as a mid to high running back 2 in this game. Freeman as only a running back 3. Even though they are trying to keep the split a little even, Lindsay has obviously been the more productive. I believe he's the running back 11 or 12 in half-point PPR, while Freeman is right around running back 30. Sutton I have as a wide receiver 2. Sanders, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, and Noah Fant, basically a tight end 2. He is a deep streaming option if you want, not someone I necessarily would recommend for this week. As far as the Dolphins go, we're going to move on to the next game. Rams at Falcons. Went sideways instead of down. Rams versus Falcons is our next game. Jared Goff, I believe, gets off the schneid and against a Falcons team that has basically allowed offenses to go through them like water through a sieve. Goff, I think, gets back on it and is a quarterback 1 this week. Gurley, if he plays, I have as a mid to upper end running back 2. If he does not, if he sits out another week, I cannot in good conscience put Brown any higher than a low-end running back 2. And if he puts up better numbers than that, awesome. I'm okay to be wrong there. Just after what happened this last week, I understand that the 49ers defense is showing that they are pretty dang legit. That being said, I think that they still could have done more with the run game and with Brown in that game, and with Darrell Henderson. Moving on, Cooper Kupp I have as a low-end wide receiver 1, Woods and Cooks as wide receiver 2s. Again, Cooks is more of that boomer bust simply because of the fact that he's more the deep shot kind of guy. Gerald Everett, he had a couple of really good weeks that boosted his value and his overall standing. I still have him right now as a tight end 2. I think that's kind of his ceiling for the most part overall, with the ability, depending on the matchup, to put up better weeks. Mr. Matt Ryan for the Falcons, I have him as a quarterback 1. Again, the Rams, we will see if Ramsey plays this week. If Ramsey does play this week, he is going to be following Julio Jones, which Ryan can still be hitting Austin Hooper, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu. So, Devonta Freeman, as long as he is healthy, I have him as a running back 2. It was nice to see him have a solid week this last week. Julio Jones is a wide receiver 1. If Ramsey is there, I move him to a low-end wide receiver 1, possibly wide receiver 2, just because Ramsey is that good of a cover guy. Ridley, I have as a wide receiver 2. Mohamed Sanu, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Again, we're not sure, how Ramsey is going to be involved in the defense. And if he is there, again, it's kind of a pick and choose. Who is it going to be between Ridley and Mohamed Sanu as the main targets? Austin Hooper, I have as a tight end 1. I believe he's top 3 or 4 right now on the season. He may have even moved to tight end number 1. All right, moving on. Now we go to the Dolphins versus the Bills. As far as the Dolphins go, you're not going to start either Rosen or Fitzpatrick, especially against a Bills defense that has played pretty darn well against New England, for crying out loud, and they're at home. So Drake, maybe, if you're desperate, a low-end RB3, RB4, Williams and Parker, Preston Williams and Devontae Parker, wide receiver 4 or 5. That's all I can do. I mean, they're just not. I don't see the Dolphins doing very well in this game. So moving on to the Bills, Josh Allen. Again, the Dolphins' defense is horrible, so I have Josh Allen as quarterback 1. Gore and Singletary. If Singletary's healthy, he is a running back 2 with upside. Gore I have as a mid to low running back 2. Brown and Beasley, I have both on that wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 threshold. Dawson Knox, I guess, is the best tight end in Buffalo. He's only a tight end 2. Moving on to the next game, the Jaguars versus the Bengals. Gardner Minshew, I have on the edge of quarterback 1 and quarterback 2. The Bengals defense has definitely struggled so far this season. And Minshew, I think, can definitely put up better numbers than the 1.6 points he put up in one of my leagues this last week with a few turnovers. Fournette, I have as a running back 1. I think that he will be able to run very well against this Bengals defense, again, that has struggled this year. Chark, I have as a wide receiver 2 with upside. could definitely put up close to wide receiver 1 numbers. I believe he is still wide receiver 5 or 6 in fantasy for half-point PPR right now. Westbrook I have as a wide receiver 2 or 3, and for the most part, the Jaguars don't really have a tight end worth mentioning for fantasy purposes. As far as the Bengals go, Dalton is a quarterback 2, low end at this point because of the Jaguars' defense. I understand that Ramsey is gone now, but their defense has still played pretty well, even against the Saints without Ramsey. Able to do a pretty okay job against the Saints and holding them up. So, Mixon still is a running back 2 or 3. The Jaguars' defensive line, I think, is good enough to stop him up. He hasn't done much all season. Boyd, I have, again, that threshold of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, depending on who's covering him. And Auden Tate, I have as a wide receiver 3. Tyler Eifert as a tight end 2. Moving on, the last 2 games we're going to cover tonight. The Vikings at the Lions. Kirk Cousins back and forth on that threshold of QB1 and QB2. If they could do anything like they did in this last game where Cousins was able to throw the ball all over the place, allowing Thielen and Diggs to do what they do best, this should be a great game, and Cousins should be close to that, right around in that QB1 conversation again, at least for the week. Not as the number 1 overall QB, but in that top 10 QBs for the week. Dalvin Cook against this Lions defense, I still believe is a running back 1. He's, I want to say, number 2 in terms of fantasy production so far this year. Thielen and Diggs both as wide receiver 2s. Now that we've seen that Diggs actually is going to be involved and getting it done, I'm moving him back up into the wide receiver 2 conversation. As far as the tight ends, Rudolph and Irv Smith haven't really done anything in terms of the offense, so I think it sticks with Cook, Thielen, and Diggs. Moving on to the Lions, Stafford, quarterback 2 against a very tough Vikings defense. Kerryon Johnson, more in that low-end running back 2 area. Kenny Golladay, wide receiver 2. Marvin Jones, boom or bust, wide receiver 3. And Golladay could move more to that low-end wide receiver 2 in that 20 to 18 range. I know right now he is wide receiver, I want to say 15 to 17 in terms of half-point PPR. I think he right about that, maybe a little bit lower. I think this will be a little bit lower than norm game for him against a very good Vikings defense. And Hawkinson, again, as always, if he plays, is a tight end 2. Moving to the last game that we are going to cover in tonight's show, Derek Carr is a quarterback 2. The Raiders at the Packers. The Packers are playing pretty good defense at home, so I think that Carr stays as a quarterback 2. Jacobs on that back end, mid to back end running back 2 against the Packers defense. Williams and Renfro. Okay, Williams, if he plays, still not sure if he's going to play after missing last week. If he does, I think he's mid to low wide receiver 2, possibly. Renfro and Zay Jones are basically boomer bust, hope and pray for it. Waller is a tight end 1. Moving on to the Packers. Rodgers, I might put him in the quarterback 1 conversation this week. He's just not throwing touchdown passes. So I think it's possible he puts up quarterback, top 10 quarterback numbers. So right now I have him on the edge. Jones, I have as Aaron Jones, I have as a running back 2. I understand Aaron Jones in half-point PPR is the number 5 running back in fantasy football. However, we've had this conversation over and over. I've told it on here, on the Sports Exchange where I've been a guest host. The thing about Matt LaFleur is he likes to split carries between his running backs. He did it last year as the offensive coordinator for Tennessee and frustrated every Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry owner until finally Derrick Henry breaks open, what was it, like 16 carries for 200 and whatever yards and 4 touchdowns. Until then, it was an even split over and over and over. That's what this is becoming. And Jamal Williams, who is, again, only owned, I want to say, before waivers go through for everyone who's listening to this now, last night, Williams was only 16% owned. That is going to jump, obviously. So he is going to be more owned. I think he's a running back 3 who can put up running back 2 numbers. again, depending on how they split up the workload. Adams, again, he's still dealing with that turf toe injury. If he plays, he's going to be a wide receiver 1. If he does play, again, I don't think it changes Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Geronimo Allison out of being wide receiver 3s. I think that there's enough guys in the Green Bay offense to fill in at wide receiver that we don't know who it's going to be who actually performs. I want to say, what was it the other night? It was Alan Lazard who finishes with 12, 15 fantasy points. So Graham is kind of on the corner of tight end 1 to tight end 2. So all right, that is it. Now I've gone through all the games for tonight's episode. We'll be going over more tomorrow. I may do a monologue about just the joy of being able to do this and having gone through 250 episodes. Again, tomorrow we are having our 250th episode. Hope you guys join us for that. Really looking forward to it. Who knows? I may even do it as a live stream. So, again, I want to thank you guys so much for being a part of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast and for listening to us and giving us the chance to help you with your fantasy leagues. Hope you guys all have a wonderful night, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.